Welcome to another one of our tutorials on using the optimized system. In this video, we're going to cover using the checklist tool to ignore specific checks. One of the problems that we often hear from agencies is that particularly in the headers and footers of their website, there will be certain checks that appear on lots of pages on their website, if not every page on their website. And they don't want to have to go page by page to fix the problem or mark the problem as reviewed on every single page on their site. So there's two different methods that can be used to quickly bulk review those types of items where you've already reviewed it, you've already made sure it's accessible. You're just trying to get the optimized system to reflect the fact that it is accessible. You're kind of cleaning up all of those review or warning items. The most important tool, and the one we recommend you use most often, is the fast track tool within Optimize. And we have a separate video that covers how to use the fast track tool, and we'll link that down in the description for you. So we recommend certainly using the fast track tool for going through, identifying chunks of code that appear on every page and reviewing all of the items related to that particular piece of code. That's generally the safest way to go about doing it. But there is another method where we can use the checklist tool in Optimize to be able to look for those problems and just tell the system, don't ask me about this check again. And so I've logged in here to my Optimize dashboard, and I'm going to go over to the accessibility panel for this particular site. And as you can see, we have quite a number of checks that need to be either fixed or in most cases just reviewed to confirm that they are accessible. And so I could use the fast track tool to do some of this, but instead today I'm going to show you the checklist tool. And as a reminder, the checklist tool over there on the left, this will show us all of the different checks that Optimize is performing that are currently failing. And so I've got a bunch of checks listed out here that either are review items, warning items, or in some cases even errors that do need to be corrected. And some of these you'll notice are on every single page on this website or a large number of pages. So if you know, for example, that a particular check should be considered passing, it doesn't need to be checked on your website because either you have a technology method in place to ensure that you never fail that check, or you've already gone through and validated everything is good. You just don't want to manually update everything. If you don't want to use the fast track tool, you can use the action button here in the checklist. So let's take an example, and I'm going to start off and just filter this down by our content authoring checks. And this type of action is usually only or best only applied when it's a review item. You don't necessarily want to do it for warnings or errors. Most of the time, warnings and errors are going to be problems that need to be corrected and not just ignored. But in this case, we're going to look, I've got 5 pages here that are showing the review item for a sound file must have a text transcript. So a couple of notes before I dive further into this. Within the optimized system, all of these review items are items that a human needs to look at to make sure that it is accessible. These are items that a computer cannot automatically determine if it's accessible or not. So in some cases, you're going to have to look at the website and check to see if it meets the criteria. The warning types are very similar to reviews. The difference with the warning item is most often it's actually an error and it's not just something you quickly review and you're done with. You'll most likely have to make a fix on it. And of course, the last item is the error type. That's represented by the icon with the ladybug. Those are items you have to fix. So those are the different errors that we'll see. the different actions that we'll see. When I'm looking at this checklist view, you'll notice the action here is ignore this check. Whereas if I go to a specific page, open up those page details for this same particular check, instead of seeing the action button, ignore this check, I'm now looking at the action buttons for either I can mark it as reviewed or I can mark it as fixed. Each of these cause the optimized system to behave in different ways. Mark as fixed tells the optimized system that you have made a change on the website. It should mark that item in optimize now as fixed, and the next time the site scans, it should look at that code and see if it's now been fixed. For things where there's an error, that's the appropriate approach to take. Fix the error, then click mark as fixed. The next time the system will scan it again, and if it's not a problem, it won't show back up. But for any time where there's a review item where the optimized tool cannot determine whether it's accessible or not, that these are the things that require human reviews, when you click mark as fixed, your score will temporarily go away. This check will no longer appear there, but the next time your site is scanned, it's still going to see that you have a sound file, and it's not going to know if there's a text transcript, even if you added one. And so this same review item is going to show back up. So instead of clicking mark as fixed, that's when you want to click reviewed. Reviewed tells the system, you've made sure it's accessible, stop checking for it. So when we're checking a particular piece of code, or in this case, a particular sound file, if I click reviewed here, I'm telling Optimize, I have reviewed this specific sound file and everything's good. I could also click ignore check, which is the same action or button that we're seeing back on our checklist. If we click our action down arrow, we see ignore this check. That is telling the system for this entire check, sound file must have a test transcript. Do not check sound files again. Do not report those as failing. So the difference there is the difference between having it done on one file on your site versus always being done across your entire site. You don't normally want to use this action button to ignore this check. That is going to tell the optimized system to never look for sound files and never prompt us to review those items. And so while you may be able to do it where, in this case, it's showing up on 5 pages, and I know all 5 of those pages, those aren't actual sound files. They're just sample files. They don't need a transcript. I can just mark all 5 of those as reviewed individually, or if I want to be more efficient, I can just click ignore this check. But if I do that and 6 months down the road, I upload another sound file that should have a transcript and I didn't add that transcript, the optimized system is not going to perform this check again, and it won't give me that warning message. So that's a note of caution about using the checklist tool to completely ignore a check. But in this case, because I know, one, this is not a file or a site that we're going to be adding sound files to in the future. And 2, I know all 5 of these pages here are simply demo content with demo information. Those sound files on these pages do not require a text transcript. So I'm going to click the action button, click ignore this check, and I'm going to add a reason. All sound files are demo files and do not require a transcript. And the reason I'm adding this, and you'll notice it is optional, the reason I'm adding this note here is so that in the future, somebody's going to know why I ignored that check. And now, of course, that check has disappeared. I'm not going to have to go back in every few days or once a week and continue to mark it as reviewed. I don't have to go to all 5 pages individually. So that's how to use this checklist. One more item. Let's say I went through and I have ignored something that I did not want to ignore. I kind of messed up. I marked it as ignore, but now I do know, hey, in the future, I've added some sound files. I can click over into the ignored tab here, and I'll see that check that I just marked as ignore. And if I want to unignore that, then I just click the action button and click unignore again, and that check comes back. So I'm going to do that and say each file should be manually reviewed, because while I really wanted to save time by ignoring those 5 all at the same time, in the future, I might add sound-only files that's important to the website that should have a text transcript. So now that I've unignored it, I can come back over to my level A, and it's not showing up here yet, but eventually it's going to show back up here. Those 5 pages will show back up, and I can go in and manually review each of those 5 separately. That's a small enough number to manually review. I don't need to bulk review all of those. So the checklist ignore button, or ignore this check, is one option to bulk check items, so you're not doing it page by page. The other item that we recommend, and this is the first approach we recommend, is using the fast track tool and searching for a snippet of code and ignoring only snippets of code as opposed to the entire check and disabling the entire check. And again, there's a search button here to make it easy. So hopefully this video was helpful. Please check out all of our videos on accessibility and our mini Digital Dash mini training sessions on specific topics. Thank you.